The 18th century Swede Carl Linnaeus is well known as the founder of plant and animal systematics. A lot of organisms had been discovered, and Linnaeus set out to unravel the underlying order of the diversity in nature. In his work Systema Naturae, with the first edition in 1735, he presented a system of the animals, plants and even minerals known at the time. But did you know that in the earliest editions of Systema Naturae there was a group, Paradoxa, that included some bizarre creatures, such as dragons and unicorns? One of the creatures was even exposed as fake by Linnaeus himself. So was Linnaeus deliberately spreading fake news and misinformation? Linnaeus was associated with Uppsala University in Sweden, but earned his doctorate in the Netherlands. On his way there he passed Hamburg. There he saw the city's most remarkable curiosity, what was claimed to be a genuine seven-headed hydra. However, Linnaeus immediately saw that it was fake, stitched together from various animal sources, such as snakeskins and the teeth from weasels. The owner and the city major, they were not happy, because the hydra was both a pride and expensive. Linnaeus claimed that he was threatened and had to escape from Hamburg after revealing the hoax. Probably the hydra had been fabricated by monks to visualize the seven-headed beast of St. John's Apocalypse. Why then did Linnaeus include a fake animal in Systema Naturae, a supposedly scientific book? It indeed makes perfect sense. Linnaeus wanted to find the natural system, groups of organisms sharing certain features, and the hydra, with its mix of characters from different groups, did not fit in, thereby illustrating the order of nature. This image of the Hamburg hydra is from the magnificent book Rerum Naturalium Thesaurus, or A Treasury of Nature, by Albertus Seba. On Seba's image we also see the fantastic but very real East Asian flying lizard. Linnaeus named this lizard Draco, after the mythological dragon. The dragon was one of the creatures often depicted in medieval bestiaries, the books showing various animals, real or imagined, often serving as religious allegories. It was not so easy for European monks writing and illustrating the books to know which animals were real and which were not. They had never seen a dragon, but on the other hand, they had never seen an elephant either. When Linnaeus describes the mythological dragon, he says it has a snake-like body, 2 feet, 2 wings like a bat. It is a winged lizard or a ray, artificially shaped as a monster and dried. Apart from the winged lizard, he is here also referring to fake naturalia, probably what is known as Jenny Hanvier, razor skates modified into a dragon or demon-like creature, dried and put into the cabinets of curiosities. Just like the name Draco was given to a small lizard, the name Hydra would Linnaeus give to a real animal as well, the little freshwater hydra, a relative of jellyfish and corals. In a way, Linnaeus had neutralized these mythological beings by giving their names to real creatures. In this allegorical image from the book Hortus Cliffordianus from 1737, Flora sits on her throne and Linnaeus, represented as the god Apollo, steps on the dragon, symbolizing his triumph over superstitions such as the dragon and the hydra of Hamburg. The medieval bestiaries were more like a collection of fables than anything like zoology books. But at the time of Linnaeus they apparently still influenced the understanding of the animal world. The fake naturalia were also spreading confusion. The situation could perhaps be illustrated by this image from a fable about a fox appearing as a false preacher. Linnaeus points out in Systema Naturae that zoology is the noblest of the sciences, but it had developed less than the study of plants and minerals. The influence of bestiaries and fake naturalia needed to be corrected. Paradoxa was part of that project. Sometimes the animals listed in Paradoxa weren't fake, but rather misunderstandings. This is the case for the fish frog, that just like the Hamburg hydra was depicted in Albertus Seba's Thesaurus. This South American frog was claimed to undergo 2 metamorphoses. First a normal one, from a tadpole to a frog, and then a second one, from a frog to a fish. Linnaeus pointed out that such a change would go against all what is known about nature. In reality, this frog has an unusually large tadpole, bigger than the adult, giving rise to the confusion. Linnaeus gave this frog the appropriate name Rana Paradoxa. Today it is known as Pseudis Paradoxa. Another creature in Paradoxa was the unicorn of old, Monoceros, famous from medieval bestiaries. Linnaeus pointed out that the well-known spiraling unicorn horns in reality were not from horse-like creatures, but the teeth from the narwhals. Perhaps it is surprising to find the pelican listed among the Paradoxa. Of course, Linnaeus did not deny the existence of the pelican, but the fable that the pelican wounds itself and feeds its young with its own blood. The sack hanging from the neck would have inspired the fable. Linnaeus proposed a natural explanation for the satyr. Linnaeus says, "A satyr with tail, hairy, bearded, with a human-like body, vivid body movements and very lustful is a kind of monkey, if anyone has ever seen it." People with tails, about whom modern travellers have much to tell, are of the same genus. The latter, the people with tails, are discussed further in a later work by Linnaeus, Anthropomorpha, on the cousins of man. One of the weirdest creatures in Paradoxa is the Scythian lamb or boromets. It was claimed that in Tartary, the unexplored regions of Central Asia, there existed vegetable sheep that grew out of a tree, it being attached to a stem via the navel. Here it is shown in the Garden of Eden. This bizarre myth probably originated from European misinterpretations of cotton. That the Greek word melon both means fruit and sheep may have contributed to the confusion, since a description by Theophrastus of a plant carrying woolly fruit could have been misinterpreted as a plant carrying woolly sheep. Linnaeus, however, does not mention cotton in this context. Instead, he favors the explanation that the Scythian lamb might be an allegorical representation of unborn lambs, the stem simply being the umbilical cord. Fetal and newborn lambs have long been prized in Central Asia for their fine hides, used, for example, to make hats. There were also some claimed vegetable lambs of Tartary in the cabinets of curiosities. Linnaeus correctly identified these specimens as being the woolly ground stems, rhizomes, of a tree fern that sometimes were manipulated to look like sheep. Today, this fern has the name Symposium boromets, after the name boromets for the Scythian lamb. Linnaeus goes on to describe, quote, "Phoenix, a bird species whose only specimen on earth, old and powerless, has in an incredible way become young again, rising from a funeral pyre it built from spices, happy to experience its life anew." End quote. This story was not surprisingly dismissed by Linnaeus. He claimed that this myth in fact referred to the date palm. Indeed, Phoenix had been a Greek name of the date palm since antiquity, possibly because it was seen as a Phoenician tree. Linnaeus referred to the traveller Kempfer, that was a member of the Swedish King Charles XI's embassy to the Shah of Persia, and by the way also in vain searched for the Scythian lamb, finally concluding it was referring to those aborted lambs praised for the fine hides. Regarding the phoenix, Kempfer had said that the shape of the palm tree with its leaves was likened to a bird with its wings, and the fire giving birth to a new bird represents the hot Arabian climate that makes the plant regenerate. To this day, the scientific name of the date palm genus is Phoenix. Next, Linnaeus dismisses the strange tale of the barnacle goose. It was believed that this goose developed from barnacles, and that these in turn grew out of wood. This folklore is even more bizarre than a frog becoming a fish or even a tree becoming a lamb, since here we have a tree, becoming a sessile invertebrate, becoming a bird, and thereby transgressing any boundary in the natural system. In the first edition of Systema Naturae, the last entry in Paradoxa is the Death Watch. It produces, writes Linnaeus, the sound of a very small clock in walls, is named Pediculus pulsatorius, which perforates wood and lives in it. The ticking sound in old houses had been seen as an omen of death, hence the name Death Watch. Linnaeus correctly identifies it as an insect, however calling it a louse, Pediculus. In fact, it is a small beetle. In the latest editions of Systema Naturae, Paradoxa was taken away, but before that some editions included additional creatures, known from medieval bestiaries. These are the manticora, the antelope, rather surprisingly, the lamia, and finally the siren. About the siren, Linnaeus writes that, since it has been seen neither alive nor dead, nor described with sufficient credibility or completeness, it is held in doubt. He refers to his friend Artedi, an expert in fish who drowned in Amsterdam after a visit to none other than Albertus Seba, the guy that wrote the book with a lot of beautiful animal images, including the Hamburg Hydra. Artedi wrote about a marine human reported from the East Indies, declared to be entirely different from the manatees and from all other known creatures. The Dane Bartolin had also reported on a siren, explains Artedi, writing, "From the navel to the end of the body it was a shapeless mass of flesh, without any sign of a tail. 2 pectoral fins are present on the chest, each consisting of 5 bones, like fingers, joined by a membrane by which it swims. If only there were a true ichthyologist to examine this creature, to determine whether it is a fable or a real fish. For a thing not seen, it is better to refrain from judgment than to speak boldly," said Artedi. Later, Linnaeus gives the name siren to a real animal, just as he did with Draco and Hydra. And the name siren is given to an American aquatic salamander without hind limbs. He even included a depiction of Bartolin's siren in his publication to stress the similarity. Linnaeus' Paradoxa was a way to illustrate what nature was, by showing what it was not. This wasn't always an easy task, however. Some fantastic specimens, such as those presented in Seba's Thesaurus, were actually real, although unbelievable. Take the pipa frog, carrying the eggs in the skin of the back from which small frogs are born, or the occasionally malformed animals with 2 heads, or 2 bodies. These examples may appear just as improbable as some of the Paradoxa, but indeed those are real, and a skilled naturalist such as Linnaeus was needed to discern fact from fiction.